Good morning, everyone. Well, it seems a bit strange to imagine you all sat there in church and we're not able to be with you. But as some of you have probably heard, Amy and I have tested positive for COVID. So we're, at the moment, in isolation. And life goes on around us, and this seemed to be the best way to be able to communicate to you and to be able to deliver a talk. It also is timely to explain to you that two other members of our team are off at the moment as well. So there's 3 clergy who are not available, and we'll try our best to maintain services over the next week or so, but we just have to adapt where we can.
Stay on good terms with each other, held together by love. Be ready with a meal or a bed when it's needed. Why, some have extended hospitality to angels without ever knowing it. Regard prisoners as if you were in prison with them. Look on victims of abuse as if what had happened to them had happened to you. Honour marriage and guard the sacredness of sexual intimacy between wife and husband. God draws a firm line against casual and illicit sex. Don't be obsessed with getting more material things. Be relaxed with what you have. Since God assured us, "I'll never let you down, never walk off and leave you," we can boldly quote, "God is there, ready to help. I'm fearless no matter what. Who or what can get to me?" Appreciate your pastoral leaders who gave you the word of God. Take a good look at the way they live and let their faithfulness instruct you, as well as their truthfulness. There should be a consistency that runs through us all. For Jesus doesn't change. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. He's always totally himself.
One of the things about being isolated is you start making lists of all the things you're going to do when finally you're free to leave the house again. And one of the things Mac and I in particular are looking forward to is going to the cinema to see the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die, starring Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's last outing as James Bond. I talked a couple of years ago to someone who was under the misapprehension that James Bond actually was just a code name for a secret agent, and that when that agent died, someone else took on the name of James Bond and played the character. So the fact that there's been 6 actors that played James Bond, they assumed James Bond had been killed 5 times and then someone else had taken on that role. Well, we all know that's not exactly accurate. James Bond is a fictional character, and 6 actors have been chosen over the years to play that character. But what's interesting, when different actors play the same character, they portray it in very different ways. They show other aspects of the character. They show a different side, a different face. So we see, for instance, Sean Connery playing a very tough, masculine James Bond, prone to violence. Then Roger Moore is full of humour and sarcasm. And Daniel Craig, well, he's full of all sorts of things, but he's been appreciated nevertheless. In many ways, this is similar in the way that other books work in talking about a character. And interestingly, in the New Testament, we don't have one gospel, we don't just have one writer's view of Jesus, but we have 4 writers' views: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. They all tell the story of Jesus, but they portray it in 4 different ways. They use language, they use the same stories, but they show us different sides of Jesus. So, the text you had this morning, Jesus is the same today, yesterday and forever. Well, there's a question there. What does that actually mean? And the question is a personal one, because all of us who share this faith, travel with an image of who Jesus, who Christ is for us. Some of us are drawn to the Jesus, the person who gave his Sermon on the Mount and talked about his care and his love for all those who were suffering. Some are drawn to that image of the servant Christ who willingly went through the Garden of Gethsemane and to the cross. Others are much more drawn to the dramatic, the revolutionary Jesus, when he cleansed the temple, when he threw the traders out of the temple, that champion for social justice. All these are different sides of the same person. And what's interesting about the early church is very early on, those who comprised the church had a big aversion. They didn't want to depict the image of Jesus. There was no pictures of Jesus, there was no drawings, there was no paintings, no carvings. The earliest images of the Christian church were actually graphics. They were tokens like the drawing of the fish, the drawing of the symbol of Christ, but never his face. It took 300 to 400 years before the church felt comfortable to begin to portray Jesus. And interestingly, one of the images we have of Jesus as the light to the world was not one they favoured. That didn't feature in the early church. It was many, many years later when we begin to speak of Jesus as the light of the world, like Holman Hunt's painting. Interestingly, the image which the early church loved so much of Jesus was the compassionate Jesus, the kind Jesus, the Jesus who cared for his flock, Jesus, the Good Shepherd. And for many still today, it's Jesus as the shepherd who cares for all, who numbers all his sheep and knows all our troubles and worries, is the Jesus that we want to follow, the Jesus that brings hope, comfort and support. I just want you to pause now in Llantrisant Church and to look upwards, to look towards the east end, to where the high altar is. If you can, look at the stained glass window, maybe look around a pillar if you've hidden yourself behind a pillar, or maybe take time after the service to go up to the stained glass window and take a look at it then. Many of you know that it's quite a famous depiction of Jesus. It's a pre-Raphaelite image, and Jesus who is portrayed, there's one odd thing about him which stands out, which has caused lots of discussion, because Jesus in this picture, in this image, doesn't have a beard. And there's very few images of Jesus without a beard. And that seems to have caused controversy or interest down for the years. Interestingly, what we're not noticing maybe is that in this depiction in the stained glass window, Jesus is white. And maybe that should also be a consideration when we're thinking about the image of Jesus. One of the other most famous images of Jesus painted by an artist is the one by Salvador Dali, where Jesus is on the cross. You cannot see his face, just the top of his head. You don't know if he's bowed in pain or if this is the point where Christ himself has lost his life. Interestingly, Salvador portrays this cross hovering in the sky, overlooking the earth and overlooking the landscape. And there's a village at the bottom. There's a village at the bottom of the painting. This village actually is a depiction of the village which Salvador himself was living in when he painted the painting. It's very much Jesus on a cross, hovering above the world, but placed in a real world, placed in a world which Dali himself cares about, where his family and friends live. And this is at the heart of all the different images of Jesus, all the different tellings of the same story of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. That Jesus does hover above us. He is an image of a divine world, something very different to ours, but he's also rooted in our time, in our place, in our community. And it's how we try and work out those two very distinct things is where the church comes in. It's where the church, as a worshipping community, has to struggle and make sense of all our personal images of Jesus and bring them together so that they're stronger and they make one united image of Jesus for the world to see. The Jesus who cares for those who are on their own and suffering. The Jesus who goes out to all those who are different, the tax collectors, all those who not only suffer, not only are different, but long for a better world, who want to campaign for a cleaner environment, who want to campaign for justice for those who go without. These are all different images of Jesus, which all of us bring to bear, and hopefully help our church community to grow. The final image of Jesus I want to share with you, visual one today, is a painting. We're going back in time now, and it's another Spanish painter. And this painting is of a lamb, a sacrificial lamb. And in some ways, these pictures, not of Jesus, but of a symbol which stands for Jesus, are more powerful. You see the body of the lamb here on a table. It has an innocence about it, but nevertheless, its life has been sacrificed for others, to feed others, to help others. I wonder what aspect of Jesus, what image of Jesus is the one that has sustained you, and which images of Jesus haven't featured much in your faith and your discipleship. And maybe it's those other images which we will need to explore together, so that all our faiths become rich and become opportunities to share amongst each other these pictures that we have, which at times can be contrasting and very different and cause all sorts of questions and issues. But through sharing them, we're able to develop a community which is able to reach out to all other communities, people of difference, and people who in some other circumstances might find Christ challenging. But with these different faces of Christ, they find something that speaks to them here and now, like the village of Dali, a place which is real, a place which exists, a place which has friendships, family relationships, and Christ can help us and stand in the midst of them. And so I just want to remind you of the passage which was read earlier. Maybe it's something you can think about through the week. And it's this passage from Hebrews, the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 13, and it is the latter part of verse 8. There should be a consistency that runs through all of us, for all our lives. For Jesus doesn't change. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. He's always totally himself. And I suppose the message this morning is, yes, Jesus is always totally himself, but that total is so large, it has boundaries which we can never get to, and therefore, very often, the image of Jesus we have is just a small portion of the full image. And we need to learn from each other. We need to explore. So we keep adding to our image of Jesus so it becomes richer, deeper, wider, so that it is an image which resembles the Jesus who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But while we are in the middle of doing that, we work with each other to understand how other people's image of Jesus is different and helps them, and in turn it might help us. Thank you.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.